The Rocket Review is sponsored by Why Not Saloon.
We're so pleased to have back on the show an incredible singer, songwriter, producer, session musician. He's done it all. Rick Vito. Rick, so nice to have you back on.
Hey, buddy. Great to see you.
Especially when you've got a great new album out now, Cadillac Man.
Yeah.
You know, and I was asking about this, Rick, because certainly we're going to talk about some of your incredible history in music, which is as it continues. But I thought you took the name from the quote that that Bonnie Raitt gave to you.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
About like a '59 Cadillac.
Yeah.
You know how great your plane is. But you told me the title didn't come from that.
Not really. I went to visit my mom, who was very elderly, and we got to talking about all subjects. And she said, "Well, what are you driving now?" And I said, "Well, you know, for reliability, Toyota." You know. And she looked at me like I was. She goes, "But you're a Cadillac man." It's true, because I always had vintage Cadillacs.
Right.
All through the 70s and 80s. And
yeah.
I hadn't had one since I moved here to the Nashville area.
Mm-hmm.
And about a year and a half ago, I came across this beautiful 69 sedan DeVille with 11,000 original miles.
Oh my goodness.
Didn't look like anyone ever even sat in it.
Wow.
So I was able to get that, and so those two things were...
Well, you know, and I love it too, you know, listening to this album, which you've got so many great songs on here, and the guitar work, of course, is always incredible.
Thank you.
Your voices never sound better.
Thank you.
But it reminds me, you know, once again, you and I have a very similar history musically on what we grew up watching and listening to,
Yeah.
to where you've got nods, certainly to some of the 50s rockers and a number of your blues influences in this album.
True. That's true. Not really always intentional, but at this point in the game, you know, my style comes from 50 or 60 or 70 guys that are, you know, I threw in a pot and listened to them all, and a bit of this guy will come out, or a bit of this guy, but yeah, this...
Well, and there's so many great, I mean, you know, once again, standouts, you know, sliding into the blues, I mean, which I love. Little Sheba, Cadillac Man, amazing. Love Crazy Baby, Crying at Midnight, you know, very kind of a haunting song that you did with that one. Barbecue and Baby. I mean, it's such a fun mix of blues and rock, and it kind of speaks to, you know, your past history in the business also. And, you know, some of our viewers may not realize this, but, you know, what really turned you on to music was when your mom took you to your first concert. And it was the Everly Brothers.
The Everly Brothers in Steel Pier in Atlantic City.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was amazing. I never heard anything so cool and loud, and guys jumping around on stage. And I thought, that's for me.
Yeah, well, but then from there, you know, you were turned on by the music, Rick, and then, you know, you're watching Bandstand, you know, even before
Every
Dick
day.
Clark, you know, and certainly I was a huge fan of that show as well. And then Ozzie and Harriet,
Absolutely.
where you had, you know, Ricky Nelson, you had James Burton.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you've got some incredible music influences.
Yes. You know, we did a video for Cadillac Man, and I was able to, I'm friends with James Burton, and also my dear friend who just passed away last week, Dwayne Eddy.
Oh, I know.
And so both guys agreed to do just a real short cameo for the video. Wow. So it turned out that it was Dwayne's last appearance. And I'm so happy that we have them both in that video, because they were two of my earliest heroes, for sure, if not the first two.
Right. Well, and you were so influenced by so many. And once again, I find it so interesting, Rick, and getting to know you, you know, as a friend around town. We're always at guitar shows together and everything. And like I said before we came in studio, you're always such a nice guy. You're always nice to your fans and everything else. But
you don't know me that well.
You got into the music by listening to, you know, the leftover, you know, albums from your grandmother's bar in New Jersey.
True, true. She always had a Seaberg jukebox in there. And my brother and I, one of our first jobs was to go in there at about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and we'd clean the bar and you know, do the floors and the bathrooms and the glasses and the whole thing. But during that whole time, we'd have the jukebox going, and at the end of the summer, we'd get all the 45s, and I still have most of them.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I wish I had all my old 45s, because it was so much fun then, because, you know, and a lot of times, as you know, some of the best songs were on the B-side. You know, you got it for the A side, for the hit, and then you flip it over and go, this song's magic.
Unbelievable, yeah, absolutely.
Especially the old Decca records, and you know, a lot of the blues artists and everything coming out. It's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, and there were pop artists too that would, like Jackie Wilson, for instance.
Oh.
He would have a bluesy, very rootsy kind of blues on the flip side of the hit. So yeah, and.
You know, and I got to bring this up too, because once again, you know, I share so many influences, but it's like one of my favorite songs here, and certainly a huge fan of Bo Diddley growing up, you know, listening to my dad's albums, but Bo in Paradise. Oh, yeah. And you really channel that Bo Diddley sound, which I love. Yeah,
I love Bo Diddley, and got a chance to meet him towards the end of his life.
Wow.
And my young son at the time was a big fan, and so he signed our CD together. And Bo also used to play the violin, you know.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I just knew with this rectangular guitar.
And he had flip side of, I think, Who Do You Love was a song called The Clock Strikes 12. Ah. And it's him playing this blues violin.
Right.
And so I tried to emulate the sound of his violin.
Amazing.
In this magical way that a little trick that I have with the guitar. But so we do the beat and we do his signature sound on that tune.
You have so many tricks, you know, and it's so interesting to me also, you know, growing up in Derby, and then, you know, basically, you know, Delaney and Bonnie, you know, tell you need to come to LA.
That's right.
And that's how you ended up touring with the legends, Delaney and Bonnie, when you moved to Los Angeles.
Right. And through them, you know, they were so influential at the time. You know, everybody sort of was giving them a nod, from the Beatles and the Stones and anybody who was anybody.
Yeah.
And in fact, people like Leon Russell, Rita Coolidge, Bobby Whitlock, and all these guys that went on to Derek and the Dominoes, they all were in that band. Wow. So their records were just, there's a couple of records they did that even hold up to this day, you know.
I totally agree, and they were I think they were ahead of their time, and like you said, a lot of artists of that time, and certainly even now, the repercussions and ripples from what they did.
Absolutely,
you know?
Yeah.
And then your relationship with Todd Rundgren, you know, working with Todd.
Happened at the same time.
Yeah, to where, you know, you were doing recordings with Todd. It's like, you kind of have, it's such a great story, Rick, which is kind of how your whole musical career just kept evolving. Like we were talking about, you know, certainly, you know, how you got involved with Fleetwood Mac and ended up, you know, touring with them for a number of years after your friendship with Billy Burnett.
Right, just started out as a random doing a session for Billy that Mick happened to be on.
Right.
And a couple weeks later, they both came to a club I was playing at with my band and sat in, and we had a blast. And we talked about the old Peter Green days and all, and which Mick absolutely loved because that was so near and dear to his heart.
Certainly.
And when Lindsay left, it was a, you know, hey, I heard from Mick, you want to come down and have a play? And I said, yeah. And at the end of the day, we were both invited to join the band.
How amazing is that? I mean, and touring with Fleetwood Mac for that many years.
Yeah,
and then also, you know, working with Stevie Nicks on her solo project. I mean, and I can't help it, you know, and certainly Bob Seger acknowledges it, you know, on what you brought to his tracks, you know, on Like a Rock and other songs that you played on, to where whenever I hear that song, I think of you. I think of your slide guitar, and it's iconic. It's part of the fabric of music now.
You know, I never would have guessed that in 100 years, but that it was just another session. It was a great session.
Yeah.
But I never knew it would have an impact on people, and that would have a second life as a television commercial.
Right.
And even now, people bring it up, you know, whenever I meet new people, or I know you from this record, and I love this.
Yeah.
You know,
well, and I
so
think
nice
of also
to hear.
about your Bonnie Raitt years, you know, and how close, you know, you and Bonnie have been, and the songs that you did with her and everything. I mean, so many iconic, and you mentioned Bobby Whitlock, so many iconic artists that, you know, when you were doing session work in LA and everything before you moved to Nashville, you were playing on everybody's album. I mean, Rita Coolidge. I mean, the list goes on and on, Rick.
Yeah, it was a great place to be and a great time to be there, because you could really network with people coming in from all over the world.
Right.
And a lot of people from, you know, in the music business live there. So, you know, it wasn't it took the intimidation factor kind of out of it. You know, once you started working, you sort of felt more comfortable in your own skin to move from one artist to another.
Well, and especially after you had trained, you know, perfecting all of the Rolling Stones licks that Keith Richards had done. So then you're pretty much ready to take on anything, right?
Well, I would advise any young players, if you want to learn how to play, you know, great, tasty, rootsy rock and roll, that's a good place to start.
Totally. Well, and I got to bring this up also because you and I are certainly guitar nuts, and you've been with Reverend Guitarist for a number of years.
Yeah, about 20.
And so you have
years.
Really?
Yeah.
You have your 4th version out now, which is the Soul Agent that you're holding. And this just released this year.
Yes.
And I've been a fan of every one of your signature models.
Thank you.
And obviously, Reverend guitarists Ken and Penny are fans of yours. This guitar is just beautiful, and I can tell it kind of has that Rick Vito feel, especially with the binding.
Yeah, we got some custom-made binding, a rope binding, they call it. And a couple of different appointments, the Art Deco triangles here on the pickup.
Right.
And it's basically a melting pot of my ideas and their ideas.
Right, and it's got the Bigsby. You got a P90 in the neck.
P90 here, humbucker here.
Yeah.
And then things that I like are, we have this, you pull on the volume and you get like a single coil sound.
Right.
But it still stays in humbucker mode, so that's different. And then on here, we've got an out of phase sound in the middle position when you're using both pickups.
So you can really dial in that Rick Vito sound, because I know that you used your signature models predominantly on the new album.
Definitely, yeah.
I mean, you know, that's what I read in Vintage Guitar Magazine that you just appeared in with a full spread.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You know,
Vintage
I mean,
guitar.
you're everywhere.
No. We do what we can.
But it's like, it's so incredible to be able to still innovate, you know, with your storied career, still coming out with new music, a brand new guitar, everything else. I tell you what, I think, you know, when this thing starts selling really well, and I know a lot of money was spent on the photography that was done by your wife.
That's
and
right.
including by a gentleman that shot the back as well. Which
Anthony
you with,
Scarlatti,
you with
just
your
passed away.
Cadillac and, you know, your guitar and you looking cool. Oh, and does it come with a sticker also? I mean,
no, that's a
special.
When people buy the record directly from me, I always put one of those in the.
I think that is so cool. That belongs on a guitar case.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, or a pedal
put it on
board
yours.
case. I will totally. Well, I'll tell you what. You know, I want to make sure for our viewers, Rick, for everything you've got going on, and you know, with your new music, you know, certainly with the videos you've done for Reverend Guitars, to check out your new Reverend Guitar model, and to get a signed copy of Cadillac Man. Where do viewers need to go?
Just go to www.rickvito.com.
I'll tell you what, the album is so good. However you consume music, it's out on digital platforms as well. But the CD with the artwork and everything else, I think that's the way you need to go. Go to Rick's website, check it out. You're going to love every song on here, especially Beau in Paradise. I've got so many favorites on here. If you like blues and 50s and 60s style rock, you're going to find a lot of songs you enjoy on here. And Rick, your guitar playing and voice keeps sounding better every time.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it.
Congratulations on the new album. Cadillac Man is out now. Rick Vito.
The Rocket Review is sponsored by Why Not Saloon.